You are listening to the People Centric Podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hey, People Centric leaders, Stephanie Anderson here, back for another episode of the People Centric Podcast. We are glad you are here. And today we're going to go a little deep. We're going to talk about something that we hear from people at work and leaders at different points in time. And it's about like fulfillment and purpose and happiness and passion at work. And like, what should I expect from work in any of those arenas? What is work responsible for, and how do I find any of those elusive words, especially in these times, right? And if you're not watching on YouTube, it's like broadly gestures to the world around us, right? So we're going to dig into this a little bit more today, but here on the podcast with me, I have Philip Herzog and Diana Royalty. So we'll let them say hello.
Hello.
Hello, people-centric people.
People-centric people. Yeah, I'm excited for this topic. Thank you for bringing it.
Yeah. Well, we had some good conversation before hitting record on this that we're going to talk through today. And I think that the big thing I'll say, and I'd love to have you guys chime in on how you're hearing people talk about this right now, right? Is I think I'm hearing people either kind of in one of two camps, right? They're either saying like, I'm not feeling like the happiness, fulfillment, passion about my work, right? And how do I get there? And does that mean I have to change my whole life, change my whole job? And then I think there's another loud group of people that are like, that's not work's problem. Like, work can't make you happy. Work can't fulfill you. And if you're expecting that from work, you're expecting too much. And a job's a job. So those are some of the things that I'm hearing from people when we start talking about things like purpose in the workplace. It just feels like for both of those groups, at least what I hear is like, wow, we're just kind of stuck, and we're using these words and maybe not really like thinking about what do we actually mean by that. So I'm curious, like, what are you two hearing from people lately?
Yeah, I think similarly, I'm sort of hearing like, I don't feel successful, or I'm not sure what success looks like for me, or I don't know if I can be successful in this job. And then, when we dig a little deeper, you kind of find out where that feeling is coming from. And then also, I think people are really looking for a bigger purpose. It kind of like, to your point, Stephanie, in these times, right? This like gesture of the world's sort of on fire. What does purpose look like for an individual, and how do you find that? And yeah, so I don't know how we unpack all of those things today, but yeah, I've been hearing that sentiment.
I was thinking with that, Gallup has shown that new data, I think, released in the last few weeks here in spring of 26, globally, engagement is at a historic low in the United States. Though U.S. workforce engagement is down, Gallup looks at the question in the United States about optimism. Do you think life will be better for you in 5 years? A really broad question. More Americans than ever have said, no, I do not think life will be better in 5 years. I had breakfast with a business owner even today who said, we were riding this huge high after COVID, and now we are at the point where we had a team of 20 people 3 years ago, and now we have a team of 4. and we might not be able to keep the other two people between he and his wife who own this business. And so to this question of fulfillment and success and happiness, I do think a lot of people are struggling in many ways right now. And there's a pressure maybe of AI. There's other pressures. And I'll just put it this way. I think you've used the word malaise, Stephanie, to describe where people feel. And I think a lot of people I've talked to lately, I've heard them talking about COVID again. And my theory is that we're talking about COVID again because a lot of us feel a little bit like we did when COVID was happening, which was that things just feel off. They don't feel great. What is success? What is fulfillment? But we can't point to this one global thing that caused North Korea all the way to the United States to agree this is bad. And so without knowing what this one thing is, it's really hard for a lot of people to say, well, then what is good? I think that's kind of this question, right? Like, what is good? What's good about me and my role? What's good about the company that I work for? Is this the good that I want? So I think these are great questions because we're really trying to find what is the good and leaning into that.
Yeah. And I like that you pointed at the new engagement data too, Philip, because I think, if you've heard our team speak on engagement before, one thing you probably heard us say is that engagement is not the same as happiness at work. And I think that is also a little bit of what we're seeing and trying to talk about today is like, so is that true? Right? Have we been saying it right all this time? And, spoiler, I think we have, but like we're hearing people use the words like happiness and purpose, passion, fulfillment, like use those words interchangeably when it comes to how they're talking about work and either like what they're missing or what they have. And so I wonder if we can kind of dive into like, what's the difference between like passion, purpose, and fulfillment, and where does happiness fit in with that? Because just hearing us talk about this, I think it's important to really like understand better what those words mean. So that way, as we all think about this in our lives, we're understanding like, what am I missing or what am I trying to tap into? And then I do think there's this piece to this of like, like what is work responsible for? And if you're a leader listening to this and you feel like you're hearing this from your people, what is your responsibility and which one of those things can you really influence for someone in their job? So how would we define like, purpose versus fulfillment versus passion?
Those are great. That's a great distinction. And I think you're totally right. We do tend to use these terms interchangeably. And I do think that when we hear, I don't feel successful, I don't have passion, I don't have purpose, those types of things, we can dig a little deeper and ask deeper questions to determine what are they actually talking about. And I think I'm going to start with like the easiest one for me to define, which is purpose. And we talk about this in context of every human needs purpose, right? We all need to feel like we're part of something bigger. We know why it exists. There's something grander than just I'm filling out this form, right? There's a reason and a purpose behind it. A deep-rooted why, I think, is a good segment there. So purpose, we talk about every human does need purpose. They need to feel that deep-rooted why. And then interchangeably with purpose, I think a lot of people use passion, right? It's my passion, it's my purpose, it's my reason for being. But I think that passion and purpose are different in that passion is more of the compelling force. It refers to more of this like desire or enthusiasm rather than the why. So I don't know. Am I getting there? Are we?
Yeah. I think you said that really well of like, purpose is the why and passion is the drive, kind of what you're saying.
Yeah. I think that's true. That's true. And then I think both of those things, if you have a strong why and that intense desire, that drive, those things can lead to fulfillment and you can feel fulfilled because you're accomplishing and achieving big goals. You're kind of realizing that in which you have dreamed, right? And so you're making it happen. And those things can lead to fulfillment. Passion and purpose can lead to fulfillment. And then all of that in every space has an element of happiness, right? Your mental, cognitive state of happiness, how you feel joy or content. So yeah, I think that's how we would kind of define each of those things. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I like how you framed those, because then I think it helps you really think more about like, okay, then what's the role that I want to give work in my life, right? Because I think there are a lot of people who like work maybe does tap into your personal purpose. There's a lot of people that are very, I would call them like mission driven. Like I'm a very mission driven person. Like I know for me, I've always worked in some sort of like mission driven field. And yes, for like 10 years it was nonprofit, but I've also worked in for profit, but it's like companies that have strong whys, because I'm very wired that way. And I will also say that like what I do for work is separate from my purpose as a human being. And so I think that's another thing that I'll see people trip up on sometimes, especially when your work purpose and your life purpose feel close, is that we intermesh them. And then when something happens in the work purpose bucket, it can feel really devastating. And I've been there before, where like my work purpose and my life purpose felt almost the same. And then when things fall apart in work, or life changes and your job has to change, then you're like, am I lost completely? And then I think on the other side, I hear people talk a lot about, they're like, a job's just a job, and like it shouldn't be my purpose, and it's not connected to that deeper why. And I do feel like you should feel purpose at work, right? Even if your work is not closely related to your personal purpose, we all need to know why we're doing something. We all need to understand why we're doing it. And I think that that's the piece that maybe like for work, like it needs to be clear the why. Like, why does our company exist? Why are we doing the things that we do? Why are we making the decisions that we would make? So even if it's not your like really close related to your personal why, you have a purpose for why you work there. And like, I work here because, I'll say for me at People Centric, I get to be on a team of people who are really like impacting people's lives in a day-to-day basis, right? Like that's the why for what we do, and it drives that. And then I can derive fulfillment from that.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting you were talking about everyone needs purpose, and I do this weird thing. I don't know if a lot of people do this, but I am very purpose driven, and I have to have a purpose around kind of everything. And so there are certain tasks that I do that I hate doing, that just suck the life out of me, that every time it's on my task list, I write why I'm doing it. So, and I tie it to a much deeper why, right? Like the task is generally something like rewrite this employee manual. I hate doing it. It's the worst job that I have. I don't want to. It takes forever. It's really hard. You think about all the nuance and the people, but my deeper why in that is this helps give clarity on people's jobs. And I'm passionate about clarity because I think clarity helps everyone feel better at work. So I tie it to a much deeper thing, right? Like I can't just say, I'm doing it because the client wants me to do it. I'm doing it because my job. It has to be tied to a deeper why, or I don't want to go do that thing. And I kind of do that with lots of things in my life, right? Like it's not just about taking the trash out. It's about providing jobs to a community. The trash people need jobs, and I'm trying to keep the house clean, and whatever. You can tie it back to a lot deeper stuff. And I try to do that in a lot of the a lot of the things that I don't love doing, I try to tie back to a deeper purpose because it motivates me more.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing you say a little bit is kind of the definitions you gave us earlier is like you can have purpose doing something and not maybe experience passion, right? Like I'm hearing you say like I'm not passionate about
Writing
rewriting
the
employee
employment,
manuals,
numb and
but
passion.
it is purposeful work. And because of that, you do get, because I've seen you work on these before, you do have a sense of fulfillment when you're done with
Yeah.
it because you're like, this is gonna make an impact. This is gonna make a difference. It's gonna bring clarity to someone's workplace and help people work better together. We're gonna just make sure it's clear.
I know
So,
it's a foundational element, and that
mm,
helps everyone feel better about what they're doing at work. Like, I know it seems silly, but it is a foundational element, and I can walk away knowing that I helped build something beautiful in their foundation.
I like that. I like that. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more then about the fulfillment piece and where that comes in, because we're kind of saying of like, you don't have to have necessarily the passion to feel fulfilled, but I think a lot of people feel fulfilled when it is more paired with passion, when it taps into some of that personal purpose or it taps into the why. But like, how is the fulfillment or is the fulfillment different than just like happiness and being happy? Can you be unhappy and fulfilled at work and vice versa?
You know,
Ooh.
this year is America's 250th birthday, and I think it matters because in the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it's a little bit what we're about, what we say, if we have a founding document, which we do. So and I often will joke with friends or clients, right, at the start of a call and being like, "How are you guys today?" Instead, I'll just say, "Hey, how is your pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness?" And to your question, so good. Can you be fulfilled without happiness? And I would say yes. In my mind, fulfillment is like at the bottom of all these things. Purpose, passion, and happiness, I would say play a role in your fulfillment. And so some of those might be stronger or lower than others. I have friends who have a strong purpose. They have very technical jobs that they at one point thought they would be passionate about them. And in candidness, they are not anymore. But they make a lot of money and they're very good at what they do. And so the passion has evolved, but they are fulfilled because beyond that day job, they use their resources, both their brain and their checking account, to do really great things and support other people. And then their purpose and fulfillment are derived more from other things that aren't necessarily their clock in, clock out or their business owning method. And so I think everyone can have fulfillment. It's just what amount of purpose do you need? What amount of passion do you need? What amount of happiness do you need? And if those are lower than you personally need them to be, what's the change that you'll make, whether that's in your role, how you approach it, or the company you're with, whether you work there or own it, to then go and make a change to be more fulfilled.
Yeah. Oh, I like that you said that because you're right. Like there are some of us, and maybe, Diane and I think I'm speaking for you too, Philip, that like, yeah, we probably wouldn't feel as comfortable being in a job where like, hey, it pays me really well. And so it allows me to go and have more purpose and more fulfillment or happiness outside of work, but the job itself isn't tapping that as much. But there are people who that is comfortable for them. And we all have friends and people in our life that like, that's why they work. Their purpose for work is to probably fund their life outside of work. Or, there are people who are like, yeah, like I have to have a job, right? So I have to do something that pays me enough to meet my standard of living, meet my needs. But the thing that does that might not be the thing that makes me happy, because I think the happiness is like, we're talking about more like that emotional or cognitive state of well-being, like believing that life is good and worthwhile is like the happiness. But, and I think it can be linked to the fulfillment because those are both like emotional well-being, but the fulfillment is more of like, okay, I get to feel like I'm I'm making an impact and I'm making a difference because I'm fulfilling a why. So even if my job is not the thing I feel the most passionate about, or it's not the thing that makes me happy, I can still have happiness and passion, but still feel purpose and fulfillment in my work. And I think those are good distinctions because sometimes, we'll hear people say, well, Stephanie, what you're talking about is pie in the sky. Not everybody can work their dream job. Some people just, need to stock the shelves or do this or work in fast food and da 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 da. And sure, yeah, we know not everyone is out there just living the dream all the time. There's realities we have to grapple with. But I think like a little bit of our people centric why is that like, I think everyone should get to feel purpose and fulfillment at work. Now, does that fuel all of their passions? Does it fill all of the happiness cup? And is it fulfilling their personal purpose? No. But even if you work a job that doesn't tap any of those three things, I still think your job should have a clear why. You all should have goals and objectives, and why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. And you should get to feel a sense of accomplishment for doing those things.
Yeah, I worked with a girl in college one time, and guys, I think we all know Diana has always been a serious human being. Even in college, I was a serious human being. Diana was a manager, even in college, right? I was managing. So I worked with this girl in college, and, she just kind of goofed off, and she did a fine job, but she was like goofy all the time. And I looked at her one time and I was like, why do you even work here? Right? Because I was a jerk back then and very serious, because Hollywood Video was a very serious job. So, and she was like, man, I just want to have fun wherever I am. And like, that was her goal. That was her purpose, right? She was like, obviously I need money, but if I'm gonna work, I'm also gonna have fun at it. And when she said that, it shocked me a little bit. I was like, wait a minute, you can have fun at work? What? And you can make that the goal? Like, yeah, was she stocking shelves? Sure. Was she selling popcorn? Absolutely. Right? She was doing the job, but her goal was to have fun while doing it. And that became her purpose, was like, I'm going to have fun, and I'm passionate about having fun. And so then she felt fulfilled and happy at this very baseline level, entry level job. And I thought it was such a cool thing for me to watch, because she was doing the same work I was doing. She was not as serious about it. She was getting just as much done, even though she was not as like stoic and like hard nosed to the grindstone. Right. And so I was like shocked and amazed, and it changed how I worked when she said, my goal isn't to line shareholder pockets or to, make the most money ever, right? Because I'm working at Hollywood Video. My goal is to have fun and to help others have fun, right? Because movies are fun. Let's have fun with it. You coming in for a movie night? Let's do it. And so it just sort of changed how I interacted at work. And I thought it was such a cool moment of remembering that your purpose can make it better. You can make it your own purpose. You can find your own passion there, even if it's not the same purpose and passion as what Hollywood Video corporate would have said at the time,
Yeah, I would imagine that wasn't the Hollywood corporate
line, wasn't their mindset.
That's such a good example, because I think it made me think of, sometimes I'll hear from leaders, especially if they own the business, are a founder, CEO, some type of very high level role that's got a stake in this, right? Usually those people, especially if it's a small business they founded, that's their passion, right? That's why they took the leap. They took the risk to start the business. It's their passion. Or it's a family business. And so there's passion, right? That like intense emotion, toward that taps their purpose. And so sometimes I'll hear leaders be a little critical of their teams, that they're like, they shouldn't just be here to have fun. They should feel about it the way that I feel about it. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I think ideally, yeah, wouldn't it be cool and perfect if everybody felt as passionate as you are about it? But they're just not going to. They're probably not going to experience passion in the same way because they don't own the business, or their family didn't start it, or they're not the CEO or a key leader who gets to make the decisions that shape what the company becomes. And so they might just be like feeling purpose and fulfillment doing these other spaces, but they may never express the passion that you're expressing or that you wish they would express. So I like that you told that story, Diana, because yeah, I think it is of like, yeah, finding your purpose in it all. And also like a reminder for leaders of like, your team may not have the same passion that you do, but if you all have the purpose and fulfillment, I think you can accomplish a lot together and enjoy doing it, right, as much as possible. And then happiness is like a big umbrella over all of those things that is shaped by so many other factors in the world and our lives. So, well, this has been a very good philosophical discussion today. But as we wind down, any final thoughts, Philip or Diana?
I was thinking, I think one way I think of happiness, which again, I think all of us have said, it's a great thing to have happiness. I hope everyone experiences it as often as they can. It's way beyond your control. So happiness in some ways is getting what you want, what you immediately want, what you think you want. And I think fulfillment tied to purpose is getting what you want to want. I think as a team recently we were talking about, it might have been Diane and I on a different conversation just after a meeting, but we were saying, a lot of time in life you look back and you realize, oh my gosh, these are the good old days. The days that you are in are the good old days. And whether you're very serious at Family Video or the person who's just trying to have fun, there's an element of all these things. I think being captivated and enjoyed and savoring it in the moment is in the way that you can. So it's great that we all have the freedom. If work for you is something that has the output of giving amazing provision for the people and things in life that you care about, and that is your greatest fulfillment, then like go and build all the revenue and profit you possibly can in an ethical way. If it is, I want to grow a great team and have fun in the process, and I want some resources, but I don't have to have all of them, like, great, you can do that. I think what we've seen is that there's not one right way. And so asking what we get to do so often, what a strategy really is what do you want? And if you had to take something off the list that you thought you're just supposed to want it, what do you really, really want? What do you want to want? And I think that's a helpful question for organizations and for individuals as they talk about these things.
Yeah. And I also love the concept of like, not one thing is going to do all of this for you. Not one person is going to fulfill you or give you passion or purpose. Not one job is going to do that. Not one home life, not one house. Like this all comes from a culmination of a lot of things and a tapestry of all of those things woven together. And you're not going to have purpose or passion in every single thing that you do, but you can make your own and you can build happiness in your life. And so I kind of think it's like recognizing that all of this overlaps into everything. And to be truly fulfilled, you need to have multiple experiences to get there. And so if you're struggling and not feeling fulfilled or not feeling happy, kind of take stock of like, where is purpose or passion missing? And what can you do to kind of build that on your own?
Oh, yeah. I really like that because that's going to kind of be my final thought too, as a someone, I don't know what a recovering what I am, of somebody who like has attached too much identity to their job at different points in their life, right? I agree with you, Diana, of like, if you're struggling with that, to expand that purpose and think through other things you could do, because yeah, it's painful then when those things fall apart, if you've really wrapped your entire identity and all of your happiness on this one thing in your life, whether, to your point, that's a job or a relationship or some of those things. It's like, yes, I do firmly believe those things should tap purpose. They should bring fulfillment. Your work should do that. I think that's what we all deserve. Now, do we all get it? No, but I think it's what we all deserve at work. is that. And then I think those of us who are intentional or get lucky, I don't know, like then sometimes get to experience the passion and we get to have the happiness. But I think the more balanced people, to your point, Diana, that I see, they've found the right spot for work in their life, and they give it what it needs to feel the purpose and the fulfillment, but it's not their total source of then the happiness or the passion. They have other things that will tap those. And so, yeah, that was just kind of my final thought too, because we hadn't talked about that exactly, but I think there's some people who then you've wrapped all of those into one thing and it's starting to feel hard. Because yeah, what if it ended or fell apart, or what if you failed? Then what does that mean for you as a human? So yeah. Well, I really appreciated having this conversation with you both today. And again, I know we went a little more philosophical here on the podcast, but hopefully it gives you some things to think about of like, yeah, where does work live in your life? And if you're a leader listening to this, like how do you lead your team to purpose and fulfillment at work, and maybe give space for passion, create room for happiness at work. So if you have questions or other thoughts on this topic, please send them our way. We'd love to hear from you. And so just be sure to listen to the outro for how to get a hold of us. But thanks for listening, and we'll see you back here soon.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric Podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.